Hello, everyone. Happy Chinese New Year of the Yinwood snake. Today, rather than doing an analysis of the Yinwood snake, I decided that I would give you guys all a little gift, and that is an instructional video on how to do the BaZi Long Count, or the shi si zi. Now, the long count is this idea that although we use 8 characters in BaZi, the hour, the day, the month, and the year, we could actually extend the model to include longer cycles. So we're going to talk about how that looks like, how to do it, and what that might entail for BaZi calendrics and BaZi calculation. So to do that, we have to first think about when the calendar actually started. And we know that in BaZi principles, the first hour of the first day of the first month of the first year of the calendar was jiazi. So it was a jiazi year, a jiazi month, a jiazi day, and a jiazi hour. And the actual Chinese calendar year as of 2025 is estimated to be 4,723, which means that the calendar actually is said to have started around 2698 BCE. Now you'll notice that I've put a little asterisk beside that, and there's a reason for that. And that is because this number actually, while it is conventionally or generally accepted, as you'll see by the end of the video, it's actually incorrect. It's not that incorrect, but it's slightly incorrect. So the calendar started on 2698 BCE, which was considered a jiazi year, and it started on the jiazi month, December, the winter solstice. It started on a jiazi day, and it started on a jiazi hour. Now, the long count is this idea that once we've passed through a certain cycle, then the cycle actually is recorded or marked within a larger cycle. And so the first cycle we're going to look at is called the era long count. So the era long count is a 60-year cycle. So, well, it's actually more than that, but one full cycle is 60 years. So going from jiazi all the way through every single stem branch combination, all the way to the final combination of the 60-year cycle, which is gui hai. And once you've gone through one entire 60-year cycle, you've basically done one long count step. In other words, one 60-year cycle equals one long count step. So when we're looking at the BaZi, right, we also want to look at something called the era, or the shi. So the shi is what's going to help us record our 60-year cycles, or our 60-year steps. Now, the first era, which started at the same time as the calendar, is also a jiazi era. So the very first era was a jiazi era as well. So when we're looking at the 60-year cycle and the last year of that cycle being gui hai, then when that particular year ends and it ticks over into a new 60-year cycle, the era, or the shi, then actually ticks over by one step, or it moves from jiazi to yi chou. So the first year of the new cycle marks the new era, or the new 60-year cycle. And so each branch is assigned 60 years in the era count, or the era long count. And once you've gone through an entire cycle, the cycle starts over again. So one branch cycle is what is being recorded by the era long count. One branch cycle is basically just 12 branches. And the reason that the era long count is a 12 branch count is because when you look at how the BaZi is organized, one 12 branch cycle of the hours is what is needed to tick over the day. The days could be any of the 60 stem branch combinations, but the months, the 12 months, or the 12 branches of the months, are required to go through one full cycle to tick over the stem and branch of the year. And there could be any of the 60 stem branch cycles of the year. So then the era cycle is similar to that, meaning that there are 12 branches per complete cycle. So if there are 12 branches per complete cycle and each branch is a 60-year step, then there are actually 720 years within an entire branch cycle of the eras. So the eras actually represent one 720-year count in total. And that 720-year count is then recorded in a longer cycle called the epoch, or the Ji. So an epoch is a full 720-year cycle, or a full 12-branch cycle of the eras. And it, again, following the 1260-1260 pattern, will actually include all of the 60 stem branch combinations. So an era cycle equals 12 60-year cycles for a total of 720 years. And an epoch cycle will include 60 720-year cycles for a total of 43,200 years. So then the question becomes, what era and what epoch are we currently in? And to figure that out, we have to start at the beginning of the calendar. So in 2698 BCE, everything was Jiazi. Then 60 years later, the first full cycle of the years had passed through, so we ticked over by one in the era pillar. And so in 2638 BCE, the first era shifted from Jiazi to Yichou. Now, going through the entire era cycle, we actually count 720 total years, 60 years per branch. And in 1979 BCE, we were actually in a Gui Hai year in an Yi Hai era. And in 1978 BCE, we ticked over into a new 60 stem branch cycle, which means we ticked over into a new era cycle. We started at Zi again, but this time Bing Zi. And therefore, for the first time, the 720-year epoch steps shifted from Jiazi to Yichou. 720 years later, we found ourselves in an era of Wu Zi and an epoch of Bing Yin. 538 BCE saw the arrival of Geng Zi and Ding Mao. 720 years later, in 182 CE, we were in the era of Ren Zi and Wu Chen. In 902 CE, we were in the era of Jia Zi and Ji Si. In 1622 CE, we were in the era of Bing Zi and the epoch of Geng Wu. Now, adding 720 to 1622 brings us to 2342, I believe. So actually far into the future from where we are now. So we have to figure out, where are we exactly? So based on that, we know that 2025 minus 1622 is 403 years, which means that 1622 is the epoch that we are actually in. So we know that we are in the Geng Wu epoch. But what era are we in? And to figure that out, we've got to do steps of 60. So 1622 plus 60 is 1682, and that was a Ding Zhou. Plus 60 again takes us to 1742, which was Wu Yin. Plus 60 takes us to 1802, which was Ji Mao. Plus 60 takes us to 1862, which was Geng Chen. Plus 60 takes us to 1922, which was Xin Si era. Plus 60 takes us to 1982, which was a Ren Wu era. So now we are in the actual era. We are currently in the Ren Wu era, which started in 1982, according to the estimated start of the Chinese calendar in 2698. However, take a look at the year which should have been 1982, right? Everything always starts on a Jiazi year. The era shifts on a Jiazi year. So what happened here? Jiazi was not 1982. 1982 was actually a Renshu year. So that means that the calendar is slightly off, right? Jiazi was actually 1984, which means that the calendar start was actually 2696 BCE. So in 1984, we entered into the Ren Wu era, and we were already in the Geng Wu epoch. Now in 2025, we are of course in the Yi Si year, in the Ren Wu era, and in the Geng Wu epoch. So why does this matter? What's the point of it? Well, on the one hand, we saw that by looking at long counts, we could actually more accurately figure out when the Chinese calendar started, but there's more to it than that. We can use these eras and epochs for better climate analysis, for yearly climate analysis, for climate projections. We can use it for better global societal trend analysis, for world event analysis. We can use it for birth chart influence as well. And we're going to look at a couple of examples. So let's look at the 28th of July, 2025 as an example. It is a Yi Si year, a Gui Wei month, a Wu Shu day, and I arbitrarily chose 10 a.m., which is a Ding Si hour. The epoch is Geng Wu, which started in 1624, and the era is Ren Wu, which started in 1984. So right away we can see that we have two Wu meeting and forming a zixing, or a self-punishment, which means that since 1984 there has been a rise in anxiety, emotional instability, self-doubt, angst, all of these things that are associated with zixing and specifically with Wu. The strong Wu energy since 1624 has brought about the Industrial Revolution, as well as steam and the advent of gas and oil and fabrication. It's also, since 1984 specifically, really fostered an explosion in electricity and electronics. That's the big one, electronics. And so we're seeing more and more factories producing electronics, more and more electronics being part of our daily life. For those of you that might not be aware, fire is the element associated with electricity and electronics. We also see that since 1624, we're starting to actually also see increasing temperatures as more carbon is being burned, more fire is being used, and we're noticing a marked increase since 1924, which was actually the last era, which was a Si era, also a fire era, but now this has climbed dramatically, and we're continuing to follow that trend in the current era of Ren Wu. If we're looking at climate, then we can look at the era and the epoch and see how it merges or meshes or combines with the BaZi of the year, the month, the day, and the hour. So if we see here, we actually notice that we have a San Hui of Si Wu Wei, and we have double Wu here, of course. So we have Si Wu Wei happening in the month of July. On the July 28th, actually, we also have a Wu Gui He Huo happening, and that actually transforms to fire as well. So we can look at this and we could say July is probably going to be the hottest month of the year, and the July 28th could potentially be the hottest day of the year based on the fact that we have all of this fire being combined together, and that we have more fire appearing in the heavenly stems at that point. So we can start to look at the era and the epoch in these various different ways. First of all, separately, to understand social and climate trends, but we can also include it in our calculation of BaZi to actually look at climate issues or to look at how specific events or trends might unfold in a particular year with the influence of the era and the epoch. Finally, we can also use the era and the epoch, right, as modifiers, right, to understand a BaZi chart. Now, the chart itself would be calculated using the 8 characters, and its chart strength would be determined using this model. In this case, July 28th, 2025, 10 a.m. would be a strong Earth chart. But then we could actually look at the era and the epoch and see whether or not those would be easy or difficult eras or epochs for this particular individual. And in this case, we can see that this would be because of the Wu, it would be a difficult era and epoch. However, it would be sort of 50-50 because we do have Ren and Gung and the heavenly stems, which are useful to this particular chart. So I would say that it would be a 50-50 situation in terms of the difficulty or the easiness of the era and the epoch for someone born on July 28th, 2025. So that is the long count, or those are the long counts, if you will. We can say that there are 2 long counts. There is a 60-year step and there is a 720-year step. The 60-year step is a 12-branch cycle where each branch is 60 years and one full cycle is 720 years. And the epoch is a longer count where one full era cycle of 720 years actually marks one stem branch step in the epoch. As you'll see as well, we have not yet completed a full epoch cycle yet. Those would be, we have to go through 60 epochs, and we're actually only in the 6th epoch at the moment. So yeah, we've got a ways to go. But this is something you can play with. You can look to the future, you can look into the past, you can understand different trends, you can look at it from an individual perspective, a climate perspective, and I hope it's something that you have fun with and enjoy playing with and get some value from. If you have any comments or questions about it, or if you've started using it, let me know what you're looking at, what you're exploring, what your findings are, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, have yourself a great day.